What's going on, everybody? Today we're doing a solo CM with a twisted bow rebuild in mind, in the sense that you've sold all your gear and you put all your GP towards the twisted bow, but you were still able to afford a few other things to at least get you going in these solo CMs, right? Because you can't just T-bow only. So T-bow aside, we have a Trident of the Swamp, which really only costs 3.2 mil these days, paired with Mystics. We have the Osmumtum's Fang, which is 16 mil, so that's pretty pricey, but we reduced the cost of everything else as we're using a Berserker Ring, so no Ultra Ring. Light Bear, which is only like a couple of mil. Our spec weapon of choice is going to be Burning Claws at 3.3 mil, and a Dragon Warhammer at 16 mil. So that's probably the most notable things. All in all, this setup, T-bow aside, is likely under 50 mil. I suppose the face guard is worth a decent amount as well. So yeah, just under 50 mil or so, somewhere around there. We're keeping things simple. Barrows, Gloves, Camp, Amulet of Fury, Camp, Dragon Boots. And yeah, let's jump into it. You know, we even have a Dragon Pickaxe, which is 600k these days. Maybe you were really scrounging for GP and you don't even have that. So you might have a Rune Pickaxe instead or something. All right, we've potted up. Let's jump into it. We have so much inventory space because, you know, we barely have any switches, really. And you'll notice that I don't have any other melee weapon. We're just going to be using the Osmumtum's Fang for every single room, which is usually the case anyways, unless you have a sight. But we're also going to use the Fang at Ulm, which is usually not ideal, but hey, we're doing a budget run of sorts here with the Twisted Bow rebuild. And for its price, 16 mil is it? The Osmumtum's Fang. This thing is very, very strong. Like I said, it's not ideal for Ulm, but it's going to get the job done. Not that I've actually tried it, but I'm fairly confident that it's going to get the job done fairly well. We are running a solo CM, let me clarify. Our previous run here at Chambers, we did do a baby CM is what I like to call it, where it's actually just regular Chambers of Xerix, but with the full layout. I don't know if I went over the melee armor specifically, but we are wearing obsidian legs and the fighter torso. The torso doesn't cost anything but your sanity at Barbarian Assault, and then the obsidian legs are pretty cheap as well. I don't actually know the value of those, but it can't be too much. The downside, obviously, is that our defenses aren't all that great. How much are these obsidian plate legs worth? Just under 1 mil. So, obviously, the first Dragon Warhammer spec was guaranteed, but unfortunately, the second one missed. So it is a little bit rough right now. We're already a minute and a half past, and we're still at Tecton. Hopefully, we'll get it done in this rotation here. We are on the Arceus spellbook for Thralls. This could take a good couple more rotations where we don't seem to be hitting very often here right now, which is unfortunate. So, you know, even here at Tecton, there's something to be said, you know, like, I know going for your first mega rare weapon is very, very enticing, right? You know, unless you straight up pull a mega rare yourself, you're not going to have the GP to really afford much else. Unless you have that discipline to not only save up for a Twisted Bow, or a Scythe, or a Tunic and Shadow, whatever your choice is, and also some gear as well. But honestly, there is some fun to be had in a Mega Rare rebuild. And speaking about the other two Mega Rares, I do plan on doing more videos after this Twisted Bow one. Hopefully this goes well. I mean, it should, right? But we are going to try a Scythe rebuild and see what that may look like. And we're also going to try a Tunic Shadow rebuild as well. In terms of the setups anyways, we're not actually doing a rebuild. We're not a main account. We're actually on our group Iron Man right now. But I've just purposely downgraded my gear just to showcase, you know, what a rebuild setup may look like. Let's go ahead and do Crab Room here. For our Twisted Bow, we are pairing it with Seeking Amethyst Arrows. Okay, we done goofed. That's okay. I haven't actually checked the prices, being that, you know, I play an Iron Man, but I actually have no idea how much more expensive Seeking arrows are compared to regular arrows, but, you know, at worst, using regular amethyst arrows is not bad either. Heck, I mean, technically you could use even rune arrows, but you really start to feel a difference between rune arrows and amethyst arrows. Let's just get through this crab room here. We're not going to do anything too fancy in this raid. This is pretty much like a money run, right? Like, you've rebuilt, you've invested into the Twisted Bow. You're just trying to get some good solid runs in. Maybe pull a few more purples so that you get some more GP and you're able to repurchase some of the things that you might have sold off, whether that's like Moon's gear, Bandos gear, Oath Plate, Torva, what have you from melee. Maybe you had Ancestral before, a Sang Staff or an Eye of Ayak, a Vernic Treads. You know, there's a good couple of things that we don't have right now that most people typically would, but when you're going for a rebuild, those are things that you're just going to part ways with in the name of obtaining that mega rare. Okay, what am I doing here? I guess we'll go ahead and deposit everything. I don't know. I just autopiloted towards the storage chest, but we got to double back. We are goofing right now. We need this Fang as well to scav, but we're going to double back for the, well, we already have the axe and tinderbox, but we're going to scav. That's what we're going to do. I completely skipped over that part. We definitely should have scavved. And currently we're not overloaded either, so I was too busy talking there. Just lost my, not my train of thought, but like what I was doing in the raid. We're just looking for some planks, juice, and mushrooms. That is perfect right there. Let's carry on. Just go ahead and build that chest. But yeah, we're not going to be doing anything fancy in this raid. This is essentially a money run. Alright, let's go ahead and do that. And okay, I was beginning to wonder if I even got the potion from Tecton, but we did. Let's go ahead and put this Dragon Warhammer away. Now, full transparency, I did a lot of things out of order there, but yeah, I don't know. Just wasn't thinking, really. But we're going to begin chopping the kindling here, or the saplings for kindling. And chop as much as we can, not much to it. Let me take a sip of my coffee here. We've been doing a lot of different CM setups, and it's definitely a challenge for me personally to get accustomed, or actually rather I don't have the time to get accustomed to each setup, and that's the issue in itself. Ranging from max gear to some super budget runs and everything in between. Alright, second batch of 28 kindling. Now, this being Chambers of Xeric, the raid that drops the Twisted Bow itself, we're starting off nice and easy. We gotta imagine the Twisted Bow is very effective here, right? It would only make sense. We are lacking a few range accessories, though, let's put it like that. Like a Necklace of Rupture would be fantastic, or of course even a Necklace of Anguish, but we don't have any of those right now. Those things are a bit more expensive, and we just currently can't afford those, hypothetically speaking. Let's go ahead and dump these Burning Claw specs. We have a Surge Potion with us, so we get another spec. And then, honestly, I'm not too sure what the best course of action here is. With the amount of inventory space we had, we definitely could have brought an Emberlight in with us. But how much is a Tormented Synapse right now? I don't know. You might not have a... Well, I imagine if you do a rebuild, you're going to do your best not to part ways with a Tormented Synapse, especially an Emberlight, because you lose out on all those charges. But yeah, I guess if you still have an Emberlight, go ahead and bring it for this, especially if you have the inventory space to do so. You can see that we have plenty of inventory space for us. We're just going to try and claw scratch the rest of the way here, and it doesn't seem very accurate. You know what? Since we just hit like 20,000 consecutive zeros, I'm going to go ahead and try the Dark Demon Bane here with the Mark of Darkness casted, of course. Alternatively, although I don't think this would be the answer because Ice Demon these days is weak to Demon Bane, is that we would use the Twisted Bow. That's been the meta for the longest time in the past. That's probably not the case these days. Alright, we got through it though, and our inventory is actually a bit of a mess right now because, you know, back when I was, before Ice Demon, I was kind of just fumbling around. I messed up my inventory. But we don't have very many switches anyway, so we'll be able to fix that fairly easily. Okay, we get to use the Twisted Bow here. I am using Huey Cottlehide, which is obviously a bit more expensive than some... I think it's a bit more expensive than some God D-Hide pieces, and it's certainly more expensive than Black D-Hide, but you could probably get away with just using Black D-Hide as well. Alternatively, using Void and Elite Void is not that bad either. It's actually pretty strong. So if you have that, that could be worthwhile as well. Yeah, I suppose the true most budget run would be to include Void because nobody's gonna part ways with their Void whenever they're doing a rebuild. So that could be something we look into as well. Although I have done Void runs in the past here on this channel, but we could definitely do another one with like very minimalistic accessories to go with the weaponry as well. But that is Shaman room complete, and that took, how long did that take there? That took 1 minute and 41 seconds, which is pretty long for having a T-bow, but again, we barely have any gear outside of the Twisted Bow right now, so like our range strength isn't that great. Like we do have our quiver, which certainly helps, but we're using an Amulet of Fury instead of an Anguish or Rupture. But as I stated earlier, we're not doing anything fancy, so we are just going to be prepping. Making sure that, you know, we don't even run the risk of planking. And we've been doing a lot of CM runs lately, one, because a lot of people are enjoying it, seemingly, and two, I guess it's very relevant subject right now, with the recent changes to Chambers of Xeric's loot table, and challenge mode especially. I think more people are, perhaps people that didn't consider challenge mode in the past are now considering it, because there is a difference between the two raids in terms of loot. Beyond just the Twisted Kit and the Dust, Ancestral pieces are a bit more common, and the Dexterous and Arcane Prayer Scrolls are a bit less common in challenge mode now. Overall, it's a change in Chambers of Xerix between regular and challenge mode alike, but it's like the hard mode Tob and Tob loot mechanics, I guess, where the Avernic has reduced chances in hard mode, which is actually not that great if you think about it in Theater of Blood's context, because Justiciar pieces become more common that way, but it's not actually something you would want because they're cheaper in terms of, like, purely speaking GP value here. Again, I am using my group Iron Man here, and also obviously GP value doesn't matter too much to me, but we're doing this in the context of like a normal account doing a rebuild. I mean, you're not gonna do a rebuild on an Iron Man, you know, you're just playing the game at that point. Alright, I'm going to make the brews here as we transition over to the next room. Now, I didn't do any math, I didn't do any calculations, so let's say you, outside of the Twisted Bow, you have a 50 mil budget. This might not necessarily be the best bang for your buck, but again, it's just to showcase that you have options, and doing a rebuild can be fun, and it's really not that bad. Okay, how am I going to I'm just gonna withdraw everything. We'll worry about the organization of it in a second here. So much inventory space. Okay, we're gonna go ahead and overload and enhance. Maybe should have brought in one extra brew, because like I said, we have like no defenses in any of our gear, so we could get slapped here. We'll see what happens. Let's try to do our best to organize our inventory. And I can't help but feel... No, actually, we're good. We're good. Let's go ahead and dump our Burning Claw specs as well. Make sure we have our Thrall going. Oh, I did forget something. My Defender. You know what? I blame the fact that I'm using a Dragon Defender in my recent, CM videos lately, because I just wanted a better representation of a rebuild, or like for someone that doesn't have max gear. And I didn't have an extra Dragon Defender sitting on this account for the longest time. I actually had to go grind for one, and unfortunately I went almost 4x dry on that Dragon Defender reobtaining it, so... And then to top it off, I just left it in the chest, so I'm not even showcasing it right now. Fang still seems to be doing quite well, though, even without a defender going. And I do think you can actually just use the Twisted Bow for all three of these Vanguards right now. It's not ideal. Just even like a Trident right now is doing pretty good damage on this Vanguard. But if you're super lazy or something, I guess you could use the Twisted Bow only. And if you have a Timothy's Shadow, you could do the same thing. Let's go ahead and dump more Burning Claw specs. Use the Twisted Bow here. No idea what my max hit is. I say this every time, but it's always good to understand what your actual max hits are, so that you don't run the risk of resetting Vanguards, and you don't want to run the risk of resetting the Mage Hand or Melee Hand during P3 Ulm. That would be potentially pretty disastrous, just something you want to avoid. Okay, despite a little bit of scuff here, I'd say this Vanguard room is going quite well. And this Fang is very, very strong. We'll just follow this green Vanguard to the other side. Oh, that could have been bad. Let's go ahead and start picking up some of these potions as well. So obviously in the context of a rebuild, I imagine you would want to focus on reobtaining like your range upgrades, right? To make your Twisted Bow as strong as possible. But there's also a couple other things that are quite important, specifically if you plan on camping chambers with that rebuilt Twisted Bow, is you probably want something like a Dragon Hunter Lance. It's just not overly expensive. I believe they're currently under 50 mil right now, but a Dragon Hunter Lance is going to be a lot better than the Fang for Ulm specifically. Now, you do want to hold on to the Fang for the rooms, though, I would definitely say. It's not like an absolute requirement, but again, Osmumtum's Fang being like 15, 16 mil GP and how strong it is, it's very worth your while. Okay, not much to the thieving room. We're going to swap into our range gear here, though. And we're going to want a couple more restores in our inventory rather than brews, actually. So as soon as we get 20 or 30 grubs here, there we go. We're going to deposit. We're going to access the chest. We're going to put away some brews, and then we want more revits, as I just mentioned. We're going to take out, pickaxe, salve, even the stamina, and we'll take the surge as well. Although, yeah, we'll take the surge. Okay. We're just waiting on the scavenger to finish grubbing here. I'm going to turn on Prey Melee as we run through this other scavenger. In CMs, they do very much hurt, and we're also going to make sure we have the correct quick prayers on. Since we're using the Twisted Bow, it's going to be Redemption and Rigor. Here we go. Now our overload is going to expire in the middle of this, which is a bit awkward. If you have the opportunity, consider re-overloading beforehand so that you don't have to awkwardly wait around outside like this. But if you need to overload in the middle of Vespula, you can. You just gotta be patient. And because the Twisted Bow is still a Twisted Bow, no matter what gear you pair with it, it's gonna be very strong. And it's gonna get the job done here at Vespula. Here, we just hit a 66. We absolutely packed our inventory up with a wow, I just completely like slurred that. Revitalizations. And we're not even gonna have to go through like more than 2 of them right here. Okay, we are gonna heal back up though, and we're gonna pick up all these potions. Now you don't have to concern yourself too much here with the ratio of, you know, your potions, how many restores and brews, because there is a chest coming up. And at this point, I gotta remember to take my defender out, so let's go ahead and do that before I forget that for the entire floor 3. So let's go ahead and put away some restores. I'm gonna want more brews. We have 2 enhances for some reason. In a solo setting, you're just gonna have so many opportunities to pick up potions off the ground. And, you know, once you get more familiar with the raid, you're going to realize that, you know, you don't have to pick up literally everything. Some stuff you can just leave behind just because in a solo, you're going to have those extra potions. And keeping that in mind as well, you can also adjust the number of potions you prep. But again, this is based on your gear, based on your experience and comfortability with the raid. And yeah, so over time, you'll just have to adjust your potions if you're really looking to min-max, right? And like maybe spend a little less time prepping. So the Twisted Bow being a 5-tick weapon, and I don't exactly know how quickly these deadly majors attack, but it's certainly faster than 5 ticks. So we're reducing the amount of damage we take by shooting and then stepping back out of a tactile range to minimize the damage we're taking. And then we're going to apply the same concept here against the Rangers, which actually hurt a lot more. Exhibit A. We're going to keep our health above 43 at all times, and even when it's not over 43, like right now, we received an arrow there, and that would have been a chance if we didn't brew. Basically, the max hit here from these Rangers is about a 43, I do believe, somewhere around that. And if you think you're at the risk of planking as an arrow is traveling towards you, as long as you brew before the arrow physically lands on your character, you'll be okay. It's not quite a tick eat, but it does account for the projectile traveling time. Okay, all in all, a pretty humble tightrope. We didn't use too crazy amounts of brews or anything like that. So we're gonna get done with tightrope here, and we're gonna swap into our melee gear with our pickaxe and defender equipped. That actually gives us an extra inventory slot for another potion if we so need it. Okay, we're gonna want an extra revet, that's for sure, and then we'll just, you know, we have 10 brews in shared right now, and like look at the amount of brews we have in our inventory. This is gonna be very, very comfortable. And right now we're 22 minutes in. Not exactly the fastest raid by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think we're pacing pretty decently here. It's not like a super slow raid. And keep in mind, we did make a fair few amount of mistakes over the course of this run. So the more comfortable you are with your setup and this raid in general, the less mistakes you're going to make. And the transition from room to room is going to be much smoother, and it really adds up because of how long this raid is. Like time saves here and there, they all add up. Like it might not seem like it in the context of just one room, but let's say you save 5 seconds per room. Off the top of my head, I can't tell you how many rooms there are in the raid. I'd have to like really count it out, right? But it's got to be like 10 rooms or more. And that's like almost a whole minute saved if you just save 5 seconds per room. I want to say there's like 12 or 13 rooms, but I'm not about to sit here and start counting out the rooms out loud, you know? couple more hits on this first Guardian. There we go. Gonna have to re-overload here. So in terms of a T-bow rebuild, you definitely could budget yourself even more. But with about a 50 mil budget or so, this is kind of what we've worked with. I will say this is a bit awkward. This is definitely something I've never done before. We have the Osmumtum's Fang only for our melee, so no Dragon Hunter Lance or anything like that. It is a 5-tick weapon, so we're going to be using the same method we would use as if we had a Scythe of Vidder. But obviously the Osmumtum's Fang is not quite as powerful as a Scythe of Vidder, so yeah, it's going to look a bit different when we get to Ulm, that's for sure. Alright, let's see if we nailed that teleport skip there. I think we did. Very nice. Go ahead and summon our Thrall. Now, doing Vasa with a 5-tick weapon like a Twisted Bow, or maybe you're using a Dragon Hunter crossbow or something like that, some kind of crossbow, right? It is a little bit awkward to dodge the boulders or the rocks that it throws at you while trying not to miss any of your own hits. It's not quite as straightforward as, say, using a Bofo or a Blowpipe, where you just click the boss, you run, you click the boss, you run. You do kind of have to manually path a bit, be a little bit more conscious. Otherwise, if you do the method that I just mentioned, like this, you're actually going to 6-tick your Twisted Bow, and you're going to miss some hits, which is not great. I will say in the past, you definitely have to be a lot more careful, as we use our pickaxe right there instead of our fang, with how you manage your run energy. But with the changes these days, and also we do have the extended stamina in our inventory, which we actually haven't sipped a dose at all right now, so we're very good on that. You're very safe to just continuously run. And then if you do run out of run energy, by the time Vasa's done, there is an energy pool between here and Mystic's room. Well, if I didn't showcase us purposely missing ticks, then we would have got that before it hit the crystal here, so a bit unfortunate. Our Fang max hits a 47. We're definitely losing out on a lot of max hits that I'm typically accustomed to. With like an Ultor ring. What's the amulet called? Wow, Rancor, I just forgot that momentarily. Alright, let's continue on. Gonna heal back up a good bit here. Next room is gonna be Mystics. And we're also going to put on the Salve amulet. Speaking of amulets and necklaces, we neglected to bring an occult necklace, which is actually very, very cheap. You could definitely fit that into your budget whenever you're doing rebuilds. I just kind of forgot about that. I was just thinking about, you know, only using one necklace or amulet, which, you know, really simplifies your inventory. But it's not like our inventory was in danger of being full or anything like that with this specific setup. Not even close. We had like, what, like a 4-way switch for each respective attack style. So really that only took up about half our inventory. Now, I guess in a Twisted Bow focused rebuild setup here, that occult necklace isn't quite as important. But again, it being so cheap, I think it's easily less than 1 mil GP. It's definitely something you would repurchase. Like, it's definitely top of your list, right? To either hold on to or repurchase. And it's going to be more important if you are doing a Tumican Shadow rebuild. More on that when we do a Tumican Shadow rebuild, but with a Twisted Bow, I guess it's slightly less important. But once again, as I said, like, it's so cheap, you might as well get it. I will say, though, it does make things awkward, because if you sold off your Necklace of Rupture or Anguish, and then you bring, like, a Fury or Torture and then an Occult, it's like 2 necklaces, 2 amulets, but then you have, you know, 3 different attack styles. It can kind of throw you for a loop inventory-wise, which is always a bit of a struggle whenever you're PVMing, like in a raid especially, There's just well, let's pick up this axe here. Like, uneven switches can kind of be an issue, I guess. Alright, so we're gonna use the trident here, actually. And we're currently not overloaded. I'm gonna try and overload. It's, once again, just like a Vespula, it can be a little bit scary to overload in the middle of this room. And yeah, we're definitely just gonna chug a couple of brews here. And we're gonna want our Fury back on for that defense, especially, actually. So that obviously wasn't ideal, but once you know, get set up here, what you want to do is chop the tree. Every woodcutting EXP drop, you can then hit the Muttadile and also brew as you need. And then click on the tree again, and you should stay in the woodcutting cycle. I'm currently gem crabbing on another account in the background right now, and I'd just like to say that someone out here is fire surging the gem crab. Rich guy right there, holy. Okay, I think with our setup, our best DPS on this Muttadile is actually going to be our Fang, and we can actually also Burning Claw spec it a couple of times here. 3 times even, move as well, and then Search Potion. And then as long as we put our Lightbearer on here against the Muttadile, we should get spec back in time for Olm. Now, with Twisted Bow rebuild in mind, you know, you don't have to stay at Chambers, but I imagine if you're thinking about doing a Twisted Bow rebuild, this is probably one of the things at the forefront of, like, what you want to do. It's always good to use the Mega Rare to farm the raid that the Mega Rare is from. It's always a good time. A Scythe at Top would be a lot of fun. Shadow at TOA is a lot of fun. As fun as TOA can be anyways. Okay, moving on. Let's have our melee gear on. Let's start healing back up. And then we're going to be entering Olm. Let's do a little bit of organizing with our inventory. We're going to go ahead and drop a brew and reeve it on the ground right now. We won't be needing the Burning Claws. We do need a Dragon Warhammer, though, that's for sure. And then there's a couple more things we don't need in our inventory. I mean, we have so much inventory space that we're able to carry, what is, I don't even know how many brews this is, 10 brews and 3 revitalizations. Let me just double check we're not forgetting anything. We're not, we're good to go. So, despite having 2 minutes left on our overload, we're going to go ahead and re-overload right now and then heal back up just to, you know, use all available resources before we head into Olm, because obviously, once we do head into Olm, we can't come back out to get more stuff short of planking. Alright, Dragon Warhammer out. Let's hope this lands. There we go. Very nice. And then we'll swap into our mage gear here. We don't want our trident on long range. We put it on long range back at Vanguards just so we could safely reach them with the 10 tile range, but here at Olm with the 3-0 method, we want it on accurate because right here, we want to get dragged towards the left, towards the center. Now, this isn't particularly like a guide video or anything, but while I am doing this method, I will say if you're struggling with the 3-0 method, this is probably the part that you mess up on. What I see from most people, and it was certainly something that I messed up on when I was first learning this method. So let me just head back over there in the cycle. So the key here is that once you attack the mage hand, you also have to manually click on the ground to path left. You got to continue that momentum. This red click pulls you to the left, but then you have to keep moving. You don't want to stop at any point. You don't want to lose a tick there. And that's usually the part of the 3-0 method that people tend to mess up on. Beyond just trying to get into cycle, which can feel a bit awkward at first, but once you get familiar and comfortable with the 4-tick cycle of Olm, and like everything in this raid operates in a 4-tick cycle, you're just gonna start like getting a feel for it, really. And obviously there are plugins to help as well, like Visual Metronome is a huge helper. I particularly use that in the Inferno when I was first doing Inferno, and at Theater of Blood as well. Weirdly enough, I just don't know if I like didn't know about it at the time, but back in the day when I was learning Chambers of Xerix, that was not something I did. But now knowing that it is a tool, if I was to learn Chambers of Xerix today, I would probably have that on. Okay, so we are going to be using the Osmumtum's Fang here as if it was a site. So we're doing a 3-1 method. Now the Fang is really not that great at the Olm hand here, because one, it's not Dragonbane, and then because you're Dragon Warhammer specking anyways, lowering the defense, it's kind of like counterproductive, right, in a sense. Okay, this feels very, very awkward, because obviously this is not something I would typically use, but budget-wise, it's certainly worthwhile to get a Fang for multiple reasons, and even beyond this raid, you know, the Fang's always good at TOA, and the Fang is actually pretty decent at Theater of Blood as well. Particularly for song... I was about to say Song of the Elves, Sotaseg, you know, S-O-T-E. I was about to say Song of the Elves. Alright, we have not been in cycle one time at all here. Too busy talking. But the Fang is strong enough to where we just finished out the mage hand there. Or melee hand. That was almost a 3-minute P1 though. Very, very slow. But, again, this is a Twisted Bow rebuild. And you can't use the Twisted Bow for those Olm hands, unfortunately, as much as you may want to. Let's go ahead and send this hammer. Unfortunately, it misses, but we'll have the Light Bearer on. We'll give ourselves another opportunity. Stamina's running a bit low, so let's go ahead and sip our extended stamina. And we'll just effortlessly do this mage hand running right now. Not concerned about taking any damage. We are sitting at 60 health, but the overload expires in 40 seconds, so we're not going to brew. And our prayer is sitting at 15 and draining some right now, but we're also not going to sip or reeve it until we absolutely have to. Personally, for me, I like to sip one when I fall below 10 prayer, and that's because of the prayer drain mechanic, right? Like when those colored orbs come out, they take away half your prayer, so obviously the higher prayer you're sitting at, the more prayer you're gonna lose, but in sitting at about 10 prayer, I'm really only gonna lose like 5 prayer points. And that's just to better manage the revitalizations in your inventory, in which our case, because we have so little amounts of gear switches, we were able to bring in 3 revitalizations, which is more than enough. We're just now sipping our first dose of it, and we're like halfway through P2. Our mage DPS right now is definitely a bit underwhelming. That occult necklace we mentioned would definitely go a long way for how cheap it is. But I suppose we are taking things to a bit of an extreme here. You know, when you're really penny pinching. Okay, we're actually going to go send a Dragon Warhammer spec here. It does not land. That is quite unfortunate. Debating whether I want to send another one. We do have to spec to do so. Okay, that was actually a chance right there. Okay, lightning comes out, so what we're going to do here is we're going to do this one more time afterwards. There goes that prayer drain mechanic. Okay, well, we're really messing up a lot here because my brain is trying to do the 4-to-1 when we have a 5-tick weapon, which is not the correct method. We've been flip-flopping a lot of different strategies and gear setups here at Chambers, and it's definitely messing me up big time. We're really gonna have to focus in here and try to fix this. I know what I'm doing, I swear. Alright, let's just turn the head over here. Okay, hopefully on P3 we'll, you know, better showcase what's going on here, because these first two phases we definitely have not been doing a good job of that. Nevertheless, though, our supplies are looking very good. One more hit here. Yeah, let's just hopefully execute P3 a bit better. That was a 4-minute P2, not something you want to see at all. But considering how badly we were messing up, just glad to be through it. Yeah, you really wouldn't think it, but like it's really messing me up bad, like switching between different strategies. Like it's like the muscle memory doesn't know what to do. Let's go ahead and summon our thrall. I might go a little bit more quiet here just to like focus in to make sure I'm executing things correctly. Here on P3, especially the melee hand. I mean, the mage hand is nice and easy here. Our max hit's just a 40. Wow, that is pretty bad. Now we know it's a 40. Make sure to, you know, not reset the hand here on P3. So despite how atrocious our gear is outside of the one weapon, and then also us messing up pretty badly here, we're currently just hitting the 41-minute mark into the raid, and for reference, the Master Combat achievement time is 45 minutes. So I'd say if you were more comfortable with this setup, and you didn't make quite as many mistakes as I did, you give yourself a pretty good shot of getting that 45-minute master time. Alright, couple more, well actually, definitely a couple, more than a couple more hits here on this mage hand. With the shadow would be a couple hits, but this trident is just hitting zeros. And looks like the thrall hit a 0 as well, so the hand doesn't turn, quite unfortunate there. Alright, let's go ahead and summon our melee thrall. The hammer refuses to land, which is quite unfortunate right now. Even though we can't hit the hand right now, we're just going to focus in on keeping the head turning so that we avoid damage. Oh, you know what? It would probably help if we had Piety on, yeah? Okay, lightning comes out, so we're going to have to 1-to-1 here. And then one more time. Let's go ahead and sip our stamina. Now we should be in cycle as long as I don't mess up. So, bang there. Walk it out for 6 ticks. There we go. Burn a tick in the middle. We'll tank that orb in the name of staying in cycle. And yes, you did hear that correctly, 6 tick. We're currently doing a 3-1 method with a 5-tick weapon. And the 3-1 method is actually not the most efficient thing because you do 6-tick one of your hits. Okay, we messed up there. That's unfortunate. So another reason why using the Fang would not be ideal, but with the Scythe, it doesn't matter quite as much because of how strong that Scythe Divider is. Now, we've done a lot of CM videos here on this channel, and some of them go quite well, and also, transparently, some of them go quite wrong, but this has definitely got to be among the top of the ones that have went quite wrong. A terrible, terrible showcase of how to do Ohm, but at the same time, we're getting through it, so it's a good showcase of just how badly you can play, and you're still just fine. Gonna Fang right there. You know, we're not hitting very high with the Fang, but we are hitting quite often, which is nice. There we go. I'm gonna need this trident. Oh, there we go. Just one hit right there. Very nice. We'll transition into the Twisted Bow finally. Wow, that was over 4 minutes. That was over 4 minutes for a P3. Well, despite how slow it's been, the good news is our supplies are looking fantastic. So we're still going to be able to get through this without planking. Well, knock on wood, you know, there's still a chance we're going to plank. A 79 max hit. That is actually incredibly low with the Twisted Bow. Goes to show, you know, like, all the little pieces of armor add up. Like Missouri, Necklace of Rupture, Zarite Van Braces. 79 max hit. That is, like, lower than I thought. And that is the raid. Unfortunately, no purple. We finished with a 45-15, so really only 15 seconds over that master time we were just talking about. We get our hands on a dark relic, not relevant for us really, because we're already maxed. We've been maxed, but we'll go ahead and put that on Herblore Iron Man Habit. But yeah, once again, that was an atrocious, well, I can't speak, atrocious Ohm, but we still managed with plenty of restores and brews left over, despite all our mistakes and how slow that Ohm was. That was a nearly 14-minute Ohm, very, very slow, but it was still quite comfortable, all things considered. Well, there you have it. That is the Twisted Bow rebuild. Some pretty budget stuff outside of the T-Bow that is currently worth 1.4 bill, just under that.